Hi, Rich Leiter here, and welcome to my channel, The Naked Booktuber. So today I thought I would give a podcast in a slightly lighter vein than the usual podcasts I make that are, talk about the nature of existence, the nature of art, what is literature, why read, all those ponderous subjects. I thought I'd do something a little bit lighter. I just wanted to do a movie review or speak about a couple of movies that I've seen recently. I saw a couple of movies. I wanted to talk about them. The first one is a movie called Life Lessons, which was made in 1989. It's actually a trilogy of movies, but it's the first short movie within the movie. Which is the actual movie called Life Lessons. It was directed by Martin Scorsese, and it was from a screenplay by Richard Price, who I like very much. I mean, I remember way back when I was single, living in a single-room occupancy hotel in New York City. I read Richard Price's short novel, Ladies' Man, and I just loved that novel. I thought it was a wonderful novel, and he wrote in a very, very concise. The guy knew how to write in that novel anyway. I think I read another novel of his, The Breaks, subsequent to that, which really was very long and sprawling, and wasn't anywhere as good as this first, very succinct novel. So I like Richard Price. Of course, he went over to the dark side and became a screenwriter. But anyway, so the movie is written by Richard Price. So the first, this movie basically deals with an artist, a painter, I suppose back in the 1980s. The artist is played by Nick Nolte. And Nick Nolte has an assistant, a young, very attractive assistant, Rosanna Arquette. And Nick Nolte has, I wouldn't say he's in love with her, he has a crush and infatuation with her. She's so gorgeous. And Rosanna Arquette, and he's very famous, Nick Nolte, in this movie. He sort of plays like a Julian Schnabel type figure, maybe. One of these painters in the 1980s. And, at one point in the movie, his art dealer, played by Patrick O'Neill, comes up to his loft and is saying to the guy, the guy's name is, the character, the artist that Nick Nolte portrays is called Lionel. And he says, Lionel, you're going to have a show in 3 weeks. Do you have anything ready for me? And Nick Nolte says, No, I don't have any talent. I don't have it. And Patrick O'Neill, his art dealer, is or representative, is rolling his eyes and say, "You always say this before you have a showing," So the character of it's very much from the 1980s. Patrick O'Neill's character is very much reminiscent of Larry Gagosian. It's the whole Mary Boone, Larry Gagosian village art scene, And I had mixed feelings about the movie. First, the thing about the movie, most movies about artists are extremely cliched in a number of ways that I've seen anyway. First of all, they're always about the inner turmoil and torment of the artist, about his Sturm und Drang. There's always this tormented soul, prancing about the screen, something to give the audience something to be interested in. He's a very flamboyant character, and this Nick Nolte guy is pretty much fits the cliche to a T. He's kind of like a spoiled child. He paints very, very well. He's a superstar, like Schnabel, although it's not based on Schnabel, I don't think. But he's like Schnabel, and everybody's now falling at the feet of Nick Nolte, the great painter. So that's, and Nick Nolte kind of acts like a prima donna, he has a great loft. He doesn't have to care about money anymore, any of these, coarse, pedestrian concerns. He can just basically stay in his loft and act like a child and just slap things on the canvas, and everyone falls down at his feet, and says, "Wonderful, wonderful, Lionel. You did a great job. Just genius, genius." So in that sense, Richard Price, the screenwriter, also succumbed to the cliche of this particular cliche. So that was not good. It was standard procedure. It's very much like the movie Pollock with this starring Ed what is it, Ed O'Neill? Not Ed O'Neill. Ed something. You know the guy. I forgot his last name. Ed Harris. And of course, what you see is what you're going to get. I mean, Ed Harris basically is extremely tormented, and it's all about his Pollock's Sturm und Drang. It's basically for people who don't care about art, don't give a shit about it, and just want to have some kind of excitement, on the screen. It's like that. It's like, how about, Woody Allen? Woody Allen has this movie, Christina Barcelona, and the character, the main character is an artist. He's a Spanish artist, and what kind of art does he do? Well, he does abstract expressionism. Again, it's the same kind of Sturm und Drang. His life is very stormy and drangy, and his paintings also. It seems that almost all the movies I've seen about artists, none of them are about people who paint realistically or representationally. It seems like, and it's not about this. They never paint like. Well, not paint, but they never produce art like this guy Jeff Koons or Damien Hirst or Andy Warhol. In other words, they never do the postmodern contemporary schlock. All these artists seem to be abstract expressionists. I mean, abstract expressionism has certainly left its mark on cinema. Every one of them is an abstract expressionist. A la Jackson Pollock, a la de Kooning, and so on. And this movie, Life Lessons, is, as I say, the same thing. So in that sense, it was the usual predictable movie. On the other hand, I liked it also. I can't say I hated the movie or I didn't enjoy watching it. I did. I enjoyed watching it for a number of reasons. First of all, I lived in New York in the 80s, my whole life until recently. And it was kind of like nostalgic, this whole crazy, psychotic art scene at that time. I liked also the fact that the assistant, played by Rosanna Arquette, she asks Nick Nolte a question. She's very impatient. She's only like 20 years old or something. She's very confused. And she's tired of men drooling over her looks. But she says to Nick Nolte, "So, do I have any talent? Do I have any talent? Tell me, And, he compliments her on her paintings. He says this and that. And he said, "But yeah, that's nice. But do I have talent?" She's very, very eager to become famous quickly. She wants to do what Nick Nolte did. He's like in his mid-40s in this movie. Excuse me. But all she's worried about is making it, which is, it's funny. It's so funny because that's what all 20, look at YouTube. All 20-year-olds or 20-ish-year-olds, they're interested in being branded and being famous. That's their big thing, They're not really interested in painting, They're interested in becoming famous first, painting second. Painting is just the stepping stone, the vehicle. And Richard Price nailed that. And Nick Nolte, the character, the painter Nick Nolte, played by Nick Nolte, has a very, very wise answer. He says to her, "I can't comment on whether you have," I'm paraphrasing, "I can't comment on whether you have any talent or not. Painters paint because they have to. That's it, They don't paint because they have talent. They don't paint because they don't have talent. They just paint because they have to." And I thought that was a very, very wise and very true answer. which was lost on her. You could tell that she's just somebody who just really can't hear his words at all. So in a way, Nick Nolte is kind of a very, very thoughtful guy, kind of a spiritual guy. Even though he's now the darling of the Wonder World, he's kind of the flavor of the decade in this movie. He really does like painting. He really does live for art. So that is good about it. And by the way, just as an aside, I understand doing research on this that the paintings that are depicted in this movie, all of them, they're all like very big, very sprawling paintings with the paint slapped on and thick layers, a la de Kooning, and all the other expressionist guys. All these paintings were actually, you got to wonder also, with all this paint being slopped on, an inch thick, how the heck are these going to dry for a show that Nick Nolte is going to have in a mere 3 weeks? It's impossible. You could use all the liquid or dryer you want. It's not going to dry. But anyway, these paintings in actual fact were painted by a guy named Chuck Connolly. Chuck Connolly is still with us. He's, I think, 70 now. He's the actual painter they used for these paintings. And Chuck Connolly is a very good painter, I think. But he's kind of a nut. He has this thing where he's impossible, I understand, gallerists find him impossible to work with. He's so obnoxious. He's so arrogant. Too bad, because when Chuck Connolly dies, his paintings will probably go for a lot of money. It's too bad that he won't be able to enjoy the fruits of his labors while he's still with us. So anyway, so that was Life Lessons. It was a very predictable movie in many ways. And another thing which is very cliched. I mean, you see there are many scenes of Nick Nolte at the easel slopping paint on in a frenzy, and he's got his music on, pop music, rock and roll music, real loud in the stereo in his spacious. Studio with loft. Gotta have that pop music. Gotta have Whiter Shades of Pale, I think, being played all the time. That was also very cliched. And when he's not painting Nick Nolte, his loft is so big that he actually had installed a basketball net with a hoop. Yeah, so to get inspiration, he would sort of, and with the music playing loud, he would sort of like dribble the ball and take shots at the basket to get his creative juices flowing. This was also very cliched and very showy. So that was that movie. It's very, very representative of many movies that I've seen about artists. There are very, very few movies about artists that aren't like this, that don't have all of these cliches in them. Now, there are a couple, though, of movies that don't fall into this cliched abyss. I saw another movie recently by a French director, Maurice Pialat, and the movie was called Van Gogh. It was made in 1991. Now, this movie was very interesting because, the movie with the famous one, there must be at least, 3,760 movies made about Van Gogh by now, I think Julian Schnabel made one. A bunch of people. There's one with Tim Roth in it. And of course, there's the one with Kirk Douglas, and it was a good movie, the one with Kirk Douglas. But again, it gave you what you expected. It gave you all the Sturm und Drang, all the torment, the ear being cut off, all this stuff. It didn't really break any new or different ground. But this Van Gogh by Maurice Pialat was very different. It portrays Van Gogh during the last months of his life. And this is when he is with Dr. Gachet. He wants to be, he's consulting Dr. Gachet because he wants to be cured of whatever ails him, his nervous disposition, his fits, whatever Van Gogh was going through then. So a lot of the movie deals with him living with Dr. Gachet or in his mansion or house, and he has a relationship with Gachet's 16-year-old daughter. The thing about to cut to the chase, I don't want to give you the whole plot, but the thing about this movie was there was no Sturm und Drang in the whole thing. It was basically, Van Gogh was very, very, the character of Van Gogh was very, very quiet, sullen, quiet, but there were not many outbursts. He didn't, he wasn't portrayed as this schizophrenic nut throughout most of the movie. It was a very, very restrained movie, and I did like that very much. In this version of the movie, Van Gogh, it turns out to be Maurice Pialat's vision of Van Gogh. Van Gogh is a real ladies' man in this movie, in this version. I mean, Maurice Van Gogh in this version has a relationship with Dr. Gachet's 16-year-old daughter. They, have sexual encounters. I don't know whether that's true. I don't know whether Gachet had a daughter or not, whether this is based on fact. I don't know. It sounds like complete fabrication to me. But it was cute. And in this movie, Van Gogh is also, he frequents whorehouses, and the whores there, they all love him. They love his taciturn nature, his unresponsiveness. They're just falling all over their feet for him. And he has a lot of sex in this movie with a lot of prostitutes. And they're all very pretty, and they all seem to just love him. They're not hardcore, hard prostitutes that you might expect. Which I didn't know that Van Gogh was a ladies' man, at all. As a matter of fact, there's even one scene which is kind of hilarious and surreal, where Van Gogh and his brother Theo and Dr. Gachet's 16-year-old daughter, who he is having a relationship with, they all go to a whorehouse in Paris, and they all cavort. And at one point, and they dance, and Van Gogh is, he's quite a dancer too. He loves to dance with the whores. And in one of the dances, it's like a march. They all get together, and they all sort of like do this choreographed march. It's kind of almost like a square dance. It's like line dancing, 1980s style or something. It's very funny, and Van Gogh is right in the front there he knows all the steps. It's like all of a sudden, all of his angst, all of his torment, just melt away while he's engaged in this line dance with them. I thought that was hilarious, gratuitous, and extremely different than any movie I've ever seen about Van Gogh. The other thing about this movie, a criticism of it was just such a weird movie. You couldn't really criticize it. It was just completely, the director's own peculiar vision of Van Gogh, fantasy-wise. And in this movie, Van Gogh is tormented. The movie is basically, the character of Vincent Van Gogh in this movie is portrayed as an extremely bitter person who is just beside himself that he can't sell his pictures. So it's basically his torment and his angst, and the reason he commits suicide is, according to this director, is because he just can't sell anything, and he's very, very resentful of his brother Theo because Theo won't try to sell his paintings. I didn't know any of this stuff. I just thought that he had unbounded admiration for his brother, who supported him during his life so he could paint, bought him paints and everything. In this movie, Van Gogh is very, very bitter. So it's kind of flat and one-dimensional in the sense that, Van Gogh wrote, thousands of letters, to Theo about lots of stuff. He was a very spiritual guy, I understand. At one point, Van Gogh was thinking, before he became a painter, he wanted to become a priest or a preacher. he was very, very concerned with spiritual things and about helping his fellow man. There were many facets to this tormented character, and you get none of that in this version by Maurice Pialat. But it was a very interesting version. Now, another movie that I've seen several times is the movie Basquiat by Julian Schnabel. Now, I don't really care very much for Basquiat as a painter at all. He was nice, colorful, got a sense of color. Don't really care much for Julian Schnabel as a director. But I still like the movie, partly because I'm dying to see movies about artists, about painters. And the thing about Basquiat that I liked was in a sense, Basquiat also avoided the usual cliches in the sense that, the character portrayed by Jeffrey Wright, who plays Basquiat, he's very kind of spaced out. He paints his paintings, but there's no Sturm und Drang involved. He just kind of does his thing. He's interested in becoming famous, but in a kind of a spaced out, drugged out way. He's certainly not an intense Pollock type, Ed Harris type character at all. So I did like that about the way Jeffrey Wright played it. And another thing is that in a sense, I don't feel the movie was really so much about Basquiat as it was kind of just a comedy about the lunacy of the whole 1980s art scene. Again, Gagosian and Mary Boone and all these characters, I mean, it was really kind of a comedy about who's the other guy? Bruno Bischelhoff, played by Dennis Hopper. Extremely fun, and Andy Warhol, played by David Bowie. I mean, it was just it just shows you what a refined, spoiled world this hermetically sealed off world of the art scene of the 80s was. It was just these people were living in their own little fantasy world, the elect, the initiated, who were able to enter this world of theirs. It was extremely funny. Anyone who would watch this movie would probably, who was not an artist or had no special interest in the movie, who just happened to find themselves watching it, would say probably, boy, these artists, they're crazy, they're silly, and it really did show just how silly the whole contemporary art scene and 80s art scene, 90s art scene is. So there's that, and what else? I got one more. Oh yeah, my favorite movie. I haven't seen every single movie. And there are movies about Modigliani. Again, more of the same Sturm und Drang. Everything you'd expect in a movie. He's crazy, He prances around the screen, possessed, crazy. Another all cliched. My favorite movie of the whole bunch, which is not cliched, and which would be Serafina. Serafina is a movie based on the life of the self-taught visionary artist Serafina Louis. And I really liked the movie because, as I say, it avoided these cliches. It showed a woman who just liked to paint or was obsessed with painting. It was just something she did. She didn't even consider, you don't know whether she valued her paintings, whether she valued what she did. She just did it. And then when she was finished doing it, she would go about her chore. She was a housekeeper in real life. It was just very low-keyed in a way. It seemed to me to be a much truer vision of what Serafina Louis must have been like. There was a very quiet intensity to it. And when she is discovered just by chance by a German art dealer, their interaction was very low-keyed. She wasn't vaulted into superstardom, fame, anything like that. It struck a chord in me. That's all. So, as I say, most of these movies about artists just are ridiculous. I watch them because I just have a special interest in watching movies about painters. But that's it. Thanks.